getting to know your community, getting to know your local space. If you're working for a group like, a governing body or a membership organisation, get to know your members, who's represented and who's not. Use the data that's available to paint that picture. And then don't worry if you don't know and you're not the expert on how to engage these groups. There will be a partner organisation, there'll be someone else in the community likely doing this sort of work. Connect them with them, ask them, use their network. I think what I see time and time again, and it's just the challenge, is people think, well, I have to be the expert in everything. I have to know how to support all the protected characteristics to a certain way, and even though they don't necessarily have that experience or lived experience, and that's okay to just say, look, I don't know, but what I'm going to do is connect them with someone that does know, and work with those groups. So if you're developing programs, co-develop with people, participants need to be at the heart of it. I think sometimes we sit and we make decisions about programs and initiatives, but when was the last time we tried something new and went along to a session? What does that feel like for people? Put yourself in their shoes. And let that inform the decisions that are made rather than what you think will work. And it can be difficult because I think when you get a lot of experience working in certain areas, you think, well, I've seen this time and time again, but actually go back to the communities, go back to the groups that are underrepresented. How have things changed for them and how can we connect with them? I think that's where the real power is.
And sometimes there's a real fear of reaching out because you're scared of saying the wrong thing or using the wrong language, and that in itself can be a barrier because we're not moving forward. So we really have to be able to open up in our organisations to have these conversations, but also to recognise sometimes we've got to get out of our comfort zone and reach out, and we may say the wrong thing, but that's okay as long as we give the space for others to tell us how that feels to them, or if they feel that it should be expressed or said in a different way. It should be about us being able to understand that if we are fearful of reaching out, then that's really going to stop us from making our organisations diverse and to celebrate that diversity. And I think one thing that brings diversity to organisations is that it really enriches everybody's experience, because you start to learn about other people's lives and situations, and it can help you become have more empathy. So it can help you have more empathy about how we can better ourselves, but how we can better each other as well, and how we can see that when other people are having challenges, that you can help to uplift them.
No, totally. I think recently we've seen that a lot in society as well. Cost of living crisis, COVID. Actually, there's been people struggling within. Things have happened, big societal changes and challenges, and people have been struggling, so it's opened up those conversations a little bit. But I would say reach out. For me, my Changing Lives Network was a really big, I think, a safe space that I knew I could pick up the phone and say, look, I'm not sure about this, what do you think? What about this terminology, or what about this? And I wouldn't be judged. And I think if you can find those spaces within your network, lean into them and ask the questions, because no one's getting it right. There's no one industry that can say, oh, we're fully inclusive. We smashed the EDI space. So everyone's learning, and we're on that journey together.
And we talk about equality and equity, and equality is the outcome, is what we want everyone to be treated equally and fairly, but we need to think about, well, how do we get there? And what kind of equitable ways in which we can achieve that. And that's about allocating resources and support to help level the playing field, and think about how do we ensure that everybody's getting access here. Because if we're not intentional about that, then we're not going to make the change.
And I think being the clarity around that, so we had a really good conversation the other night around the lack of female representation in CEOs. We've got a really strong evidence base about that. We know the percentage. We know the percentage that's not applying for these roles as well. So you sometimes have not even a female applicant. So we need to be looking at what bespoke support does that group need? What mentorship, what training, what resource, because we can see a gap. And I think if you're really clear around that and you have the evidence base to back it up, that'll inform the decisions that you're making. So when things are getting tighter, funding's getting tighter, where do we put the limited resources that we have? Go back to the evidence base. Who's not here? Who's not around the table?
And that's about putting in place monitoring systems or setting aspirational targets. You know, they don't have to be like you know, they don't have to be huge. You just need to have, what are your priorities for this year around inclusion, and really sort of focusing in on what you want to achieve. And if that is about, you know, your representation at your leadership level, if it's about getting a better gender balance, then, you know, if we can, yes, we may have the evidence for that, but we need to continue to monitor and track that so that we can see, are we actually making any success here? Are we improving the gender balance, or what do we need in order to address that? If it isn't shifting forward, do we need to put in do we need to think about how we're recruiting? Where might be the barriers? Is it around is it the way we run our meetings? How inclusive are our meetings? What times are they set? Is that achievable for everyone? So these are the questions we need to be asking ourselves when we're thinking about inclusivity. And we also need to make sure that we're thinking about different voices around the table in inclusion. And sometimes as organisations, it's easy to hear the loudest voice. But what we need to practice is, well, how do we hear everybody's voice? And whether you're a chair of a meeting or you're running a meeting, how are we making sure that actually, have you had your say, or has everybody had their point of view heard? Because there's so many times I've sat in a meeting and I've got this amazing idea in my head, and I'm like, I want to say it, but is this a safe space for me to say it? Will I feel stupid? This is out of the ordinary. It's suggesting something different, and by the time the meeting is over, I've not said it, and that can be really frustrating for me because I wanted to make a difference, but I couldn't. So it's also thinking about how we work together in our teams to challenge ourselves, to challenge our thinking, and you know, that can really make a difference in our working environment.